If you're looking to build yourself a gaming PC in 2026, then please stop buying these gaming PC parts. Honestly, there are so many companies that will throw you all of these great components that will cost an arm and a leg, but will make absolutely no difference to your frame rate whatsoever. Fortunately though, I have some good news. You have me, and today I'm going to walk you through all of the key components that people always seem to get wrong, and hopefully save you tons of cash, increase your in-game FPS, or dare I say, even both. This is going to be an awesome video, and I know you're going to love it, so stay tuned to learn absolutely everything you need to know right after a short word from this video's sponsor. NZXT's H2 Flow is here, the mini ITX small form factor case that proves big things can come in small packages. This 20.7 litre chassis oozes luxury, with its fine mesh and hybrid side panels combining airflow with the elegance of glass. It fits mighty graphics cards up to 33 centimeters long and supports 280mm all-in-one liquid coolers for standout CPU performance. Learn more about the new NZXT H2 Flow today with the link down below. Welcome back, and let's kick straight off with perhaps the biggest money trap of all, graphics cards. Because of course, it goes without saying that every PC gamer needs one, and companies know this, and these days they have remarkable ways of upselling you something that is just way over the top. Now sure, you can always cut back from an RTX 5080 to a 5070 Ti and probably not notice that much difference in the real world, but today we're not actually slagging off NVIDIA or AMD, no. Today we're looking at vendors like MSI, Gigabyte and ASUS. And I do actually have the perfect example to show you here. So this is a previous gen graphics card, this is a 7900 XTX, this was the AMD reference design, if you like, and it's pretty small. It could actually fit in quite a few ITX systems, and while it wasn't the absolute quietest or obviously the lowest in terms of temperatures, this was more than sufficient for what most people actually needed. But enter vendors like ASUS, and then they bring out something like this. This was the tough edition, and this wasn't actually crazy expensive, which was quite good, but this kind of illustrates the point really of what companies like ASUS will do and where their margins lie. So they will kind of take the design and just overbuild a cooler just to, well, make it run cooler, give it slightly more performance with an overclock, have it run a lot quieter. And this is kind of good on paper, and you instinctively think, oh, well, I obviously want the best one, I don't want the entry-level one. But we've kind of got to the point now where actually the entry-level SKUs don't tend to be drastically different, again, in the real world, to their more expensive siblings. And it's not like we're talking about an extra 30, 40, 50 pounds of dollars here. You can actually get graphics cards that cost hundreds of dollars more. And if you're looking at something, say, like a 5070, then by the time you've gone for like the most expensive model, you could more or less be looking at like a 5070 Ti, right? I mean, obviously pricing and things are always changing, but please don't be oversold into getting like the absolute best version of a graphics card just because it's bigger, just because it has like a pre-factory overclock on it, when realistically a lot of these things you can either do yourself, or the performance, the acoustics, the thermals are actually going to be more than good enough out of the box on the entry-level version, rather than spending loads more money, as I say, for something you just don't really need. Now, moving on, and in a similar vein, us gamers also need to grab ourselves a motherboard. Heck, even if you never touch Halo in your life, you still need one. And once again, this is an area where vendors love sucking up your cold hard cash. Motherboards need to support your processor, have good enough power delivery and cooling blocks to let it stretch its legs, and then have all of the features that you actually need, like Wi-Fi, USB, SSD bays, PCIe Gen 4 or 5, and potentially USB BIOS flashback. But beyond that, it's definitely a little bit of a racket. Now, again, case in point, oh, sorry, ASUS, you just happen to be the one there. We've got ourselves an ASRock as well, look, you're not alone. What typically tends to happen is that gamers think, well, I need something that's going to last. I don't want to cheap out on anything. And obviously the motherboard is kind of like the heart of your system. I want to make sure I get something that is going to last. But again, realistically, beyond supporting the CPU that you need and then just having all of the features that you actively need, there's not really any point going for something crazy expensive. So you've got different chipsets, but realistically for gamers, the B series is probably all you're going to need. And then as you step up, you get more USB ports, you get more bandwidth, you get more PCIe lanes, you get extra overclocking features, and obviously it does depend on a board-by-board basis. And once again, I'm not saying that no one should buy an expensive motherboard, I'm just saying make sure you buy the motherboard that's right for you and don't be oversold into buying something that you don't need, because whilst extra features are great, they don't necessarily, or basically never really, translate into extra frame rate. So if you're trying to maximize FPS and get to I don't know, Star Wars Outlaws. That's what I'm playing at the moment. Don't judge me. If you're just trying to get your game to run as smoothly as possible, then spending £500–600 on a motherboard isn't the way to do that. So, right, okay, I think I'm getting it. I want to pump as much money as possible into the more important components. But what are they exactly? Well, being as specific as possible with my language here, obviously you should always pump as much cash into the GPU itself rather than the overbaked graphics card, but then also please don't disregard the CPU. Now, we've literally just made a full video testing pretty much every single gaming CPU you could buy, and you can find that in the top right corner of your screen, but the key mistake that loads of people keep making is to just overspec their rig with a high core count chip, which is fantastic for productivity, but just not ideal for gaming. And specifically what we're talking about here is just CPUs that have loads of cores. So we're looking at Ultra 9s really, and Ryzen 9s. That's not to say that they're bad at gaming, but in terms of value for money, there are tasks like video editing, CAD, rendering, anything really that uses lots of those CPU cores all at the same time, and the more you have, the better it performs. I mean, a good example of this in games is when you're preloading shaders. So if you first fire up a title and you know it can sometimes takes like 10–15 minutes before you can get into the game, that process will actually be quicker if you have a high core count CPU. But in terms of the actual gaming FPS, beyond 8 cores, it doesn't really make that much difference. So if you were potentially looking at maybe like a £500 CPU that has 16 cores, or maybe a £300 one that has 8, then in terms of the real world experience, again, there's not really going to be any big difference other than preloading shaders. So for me, I would put that money into a more expensive graphics card or the GPU, and then obviously get a higher frame rate as an end result. But it depends what you're buying your PC for. Specifically for gaming, high core count, it's just overpriced and you don't need it. But obviously for productivity and gaming, that would be a different story. Now, of course, it's 2026 and we couldn't make a PC gaming video without touching on the obvious one. RAM, that elusive, expensive merino wool that helps keep moisture. No, sorry, that's the wrong RAM. That is so bad. For real, RAM prices are through the roof, and even if they do start to creep down, the chances of 2024 prices returning anytime soon are drastically low. It's for this reason that it's as important as ever not to overspend here, and whilst the old rule of 6000 MHz CL30 was fantastic at the time when it was affordable, now just buy whatever is a good deal. This means actively not buying a quantity of RAM that's over the top, so unless you're specifically a productivity whiz as well as a gamer, please stick to 32 gig or even consider 16 for the best bang for buck. Now, coming in at number 5 or 6 or whatever we're on, we also have PCIe Generation 5 SSDs. And to be fair, SSDs that are just overpriced. Now, obviously, again, in 2026, this is kind of everything, but there's some easy ways to save money on your rig. Now, firstly, if you have fast internet, you don't actively need loads of capacity. I understand that obviously having a 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte drive would be fantastic, but realistically, how often do you play Shadow of the Tomb Raider? How often do you play XCOM? You can delete those and reinstall those later, and obviously that would save you a whole bunch of money. But then specifically when it comes to the speed of the drive, we've now got PCIe Generation 5, which theoretically is much faster, but in terms of real world performance, doesn't make that much difference. I mean, even the difference between Gen 3 and Gen 4 in games isn't really that noticeable. The main thing really is just if you can buy a drive that has a cache, it is actively going to perform better over longer periods of time. That's not to say that you need one, but in my experience, it definitely does help. So I would go for that over like raw speed or raw capacity. But it depends on your use case. If you've got slow internet, I understand. Now, pressing on, what else can we add to our do not buy bin? Ah yes, high-end, all-in-one liquid coolers. Now, I know, they look cool, and in reality, they are cool. They're also a fair bit easier to ship and move around in pre-builds too. And to be fair, they're not always crazy expensive money, but honestly, there are just far too many that are. They're overbuilt, they're so big, they've got ridiculous fans on them, crazy LCD displays, and ultimately, they're so expensive that you are literally just throwing your money into aesthetics. Which, don't get me wrong, if that's what you're trying to do, is great. You should have a rig that you're proud of and that you love having on or under your desk. But in terms of frame rates, and again, just having something that performs well, you can do it for much, much cheaper if you go for an air cooler. So this one here is from Thermalright. It's around about like £35 or so at the time of filming. And this PC, granted, it's not like the most high-end one in the world, but this is among one of the quietest I've built in a long, long time. And it does this just by having a large cooler that's relatively inexpensive. So if you want something that kind of looks a little bit more blingy and you obviously want to transport it around around or you want to have like an LCD display. I get it, but think about the priorities. Are you trying to prioritize having the best possible gaming experience, or are you happy to sacrifice some of that to have a PC that, in your opinion, looks a little bit better? It is entirely up to you, but personally, for most people, I'd always recommend an air cooler and just to chuck the money into something more important. I will add, by the way, that we have literally just finished this PC. It was awesome, actually. So if you want to see the full build guide, you can find this in the top right corner of your screen, or if you're interested in current pricing on anything that's in this rig, you can find it listed down below. But enough talk about links. How about we talk about the big stuff? And we're using this voice for some reason. Let's talk about cases. And one of my other pet peeves that I see a lot of people do is they go for a case that's way too big. It's oversized, it costs a lot of money. Now, obviously, the bigger a case is, then the more stuff you can fit inside it. And actually, because you've got a higher volume of air inside it, tends to naturally be a little bit cooler. You can fit bigger fans and things inside there as well. But the big problem, literally, that obviously cases like this have, is that they take up so much space on your desk that ultimately you can't then fit speakers, or you have to go for a smaller monitor, or you just kind of end up putting it on the floor, which is fine if that's what you've kind of designed to do from the start. But if you're only putting kind of more simple components inside there, you're not doing like a custom liquid cooled loop, or you're not having like the world's biggest graphics card in there, do you really need to go for something that ginormous and spend all of that extra money? I would argue not, which is why kind of standard ATX is where personally I would always tend to lean maybe micro ATX. And then yes, don't hate me for this, but I've also got to say, generally speaking, I'm also not a massive fan of ITX either.
Oh my God, PC Centric, what is wrong with you, mate? You know nothing, you're a loser. Why are you on YouTube?
I ask myself that quite a lot of the time. No, obviously, like all of the other components that we've talked about today, they have their place. And if you buy one, that can absolutely be a very sensible decision. However, you should only really buy ITX if you actively need something that is small. Whatever reason that is, whether that's a passion project or physical constraints. Because as soon as you buy anything that's ITX, it tends to get more expensive straight away. The motherboards tend to be more because they're like specialized tooling. As soon as you go for like an ITX case, some of them can be affordable, but usually they seem to be a lot more expensive than the larger ones, which you might think makes no sense because shipping costs would be less, there's less materials, but it's actually mainly just down to, I was gonna say yields, but it's more just about how many they sell. Obviously, the more cases you manufacture, the cheaper every unit can be. But when you're dealing with ITX, especially from smaller companies, obviously you're just selling less, so you have to charge more money, economies in scale and all of that. So you have to deal with that. Then you have to deal with the fact that you've got less air inside your system, so it's obviously harder to cool. You can then put smaller stuff inside there to cool it. You can't have massive coolers, or a lot of ITX cases, you can't have liquid coolers and things inside there. Obviously, there are exceptions to all of these, and again, you're going to buy the right hardware for the right rig. But generally speaking, if it costs more money, it's harder to build and it's harder to actually put the stuff inside there, and then harder to keep cool when you have a louder system. In my eyes, that doesn't really make sense for your average gamer. Now, obviously, as I say, if you want something small, you need it to be small, then great, go for that. And I would actively recommend it because ITX is in a great place now. But just for most people, just stick to something normal size, save the money, and just save yourself a bit of a headache.
Oh, PC Centric, I'm still not happy. Hate ITX. Oh.
Anyway, drifting towards the final piece of your gaming rig, of course, it's going to be a power supply. And yeah, it is incredibly boring, there's no doubt about it, but the term future-proof gets thrown around an awful lot with PSUs. And personally, I'm a big advocate of slightly over-speccing your power supply. Use an online calculator to work out exactly what it is that you need, and then plan for future upgrades like a new CPU, GPU, or a full system overclock. But what you absolutely shouldn't do is just go right ahead and just buy a 1200 watt unit because you might use it one day, or because your friend's got one, or because maybe it's slightly on sale. That's not to say, once again, that PSUs don't have their place when it comes to like high wattage, but you think I've been doing this channel, right, since 2012, and I don't think there's been a single occasion when I've tested anything when I have needed a 1200 watt PSU or larger. Again, absolutely the use cases exist, but it's just about buying the right kind of power supply for what you need now, and then any future upgrades that you might realistically make. So if you need a 650 watt and you think you might upgrade to a next tier of graphics card in a couple of years' time, buy a 750, maybe even an 850. But please don't go crazy and spend loads of money, because once again, you guessed it, that can go towards something that is far more important. Now you might be sat there thinking that that's your lot, but no, the secret sauce to your gaming PC arguably lies just as much in the monitor as it does with the rig. After all, what do you stare at for hours on end? Your PC or your display? Or just these arms? Can't even keep a straight face. I mean, let's be honest, it's probably the second one. And real talk, he says after making that joke, 2026 obviously is an absolutely crap year for PC gaming. If you want to upgrade your PC, there are absolutely deals to be had, but there are plenty of components that are overpriced. But to counter that, the good news is that actually gaming monitors are probably the cheapest really that they've ever been. I mean, technology has come on such a long way only in the last few years as well. Like, not only are we getting affordable OLED monitors that just are the best of the best essentially, but if you want something that's budget, something that's very affordable, that's IPS, that's VA, that's high refresh rate, even high resolution like 1440p displays, all of this has come down so much that they are a lot more affordable. And I see loads and loads of people buying massive high-end graphics cards, high-end CPUs, and then just running on an old monitor, and that just doesn't really make any sense whatsoever. Seriously, if you're itching to upgrade your rig and you won't touch DDR5 or SSDs with a barge pole, then this is the upgrade for you. And we have recently done a full buyer's guide actually on some of the latest and greatest OLED monitors, as I say, a lot more affordable now. And it goes into full detail about the technology, the advantages, the disadvantages, all of our favorites. Down below, we'll leave our monitor recommendations, but also you can find the full video in the top right corner of your screen. But this has been all of the PC parts to avoid. What do you think? Have we got it right? Are all of these fair points? Or, as always, is PC Centric a loser, an idiot who hates ITX and should go back to hating radiators? If you've enjoyed this video, smash the like button, get yourself subscribed, and as I say, if you do want to check out current pricing on anything that we talked about in this video today, you can find it listed down below with our affiliate links.
And while you're down there, why not get involved with a new NZXT H2 Flow? This mini ITX small form factor enclosure packs tool-free access, a PCIe Generation 5 riser, and support for proper high-end components, all within a tiny 20.7 litre chassis. The design is sleek with plenty of airflow, yet a small glass panel lets you bask in the beauty of your high-end all-in-one, especially if it packs an LCD. It also fits perfectly with a new NZXT C850W SFX Gold power supply for proper power per square inch. Get yours today with a link down below.
But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.